flag. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. This is the meeting of the Morrison County Board of Adjustment. The board is made up of citizens from the 5 commissioners' districts of the county. The purpose of this board is to review application of property owners for relief from the strictest interpretation of the county ordinances. Our guidelines are established in state statutes, chapter 394.27, subsection 7. The decision made by the board is the result of whether or not a practical difficulty has been determined. If the board determines there is a practical difficulty, we then review the guidelines in the form of 6 criteria questions that are answered at the end of the applicant's request. A final decision is then made. Each request is evaluated on its own unique practical difficulty. Variances are granted to the land, not to the landowner. This board may, in addition, impose conditions in the granting of variances to ensure compliance. After your public hearing is complete, you may leave if you wish. We have 2 items on the agenda tonight. The first item on the agenda is Carlo and Karen Rome. If you'd like to come forward 26631 Spring Lane, Hillman. Application for a variance to construct a home and deck within the setback of a lake located in Richardson Township. Once you're comfortable, I'll pull up the mic real close and state your name for the record, please.
Travis Miller. Carlo Rome.
Karen Rome.
Thank you. Travis.
Yes.
I'm just writing your names down. Carol and Carlo, same letters, I assume.
C and a K.
Carlo.
Carlo.
Right.
C?
C-A-R-L-O, and I noticed there was an S on the
Oh,
first PowerPoint.
okay.
No
And
S.
Carol is C-A-R?
Karen.
Oh, Karen, not Carol. I'm sorry.
Karen.
Oh, well, I was just trying to make a little whatever. Thank you
With
for
a K.
cooperating.
Yeah.
Correct that spelling. Why did you hand me this?
So you can see their names.
Okay, well, I got one just like it. I just can't read. Thank you, though. All right. Are you ready with the staff report, Amy? Probably
am,
were a
Mr.
few
Chair.
minutes ago, huh?
This is, again, a variance to construct a dwelling and deck within the setback to the lake, located in Section 4 of Richardson Township. The ordinance reference for this request is Section 706.1, and that requires a 75-foot setback from general development lakes. Here is a plat map of Richardson Township, and the location of this parcel is highlighted with that red dot. And then here's the request received from the applicant. Then here's a survey and site plan also provided by the applicant. Here's an aerial photograph of the parcels. They're outlined in blue and yellow. And then some oblique imagery of the parcel as well. And then here's some shoreline views. And here's site photographs taken at the viewing. Again, the property's in Section 4 of Richardson Township. It's on Long Lake, which is a general development lake. The property is made up of 2 parcels, and together they are a conforming duplex lot, which means it's at least 50,000 square feet and 180 feet wide. The property is 426 feet wide and 54,038 square feet. The existing non-conforming home was removed about 2 years ago. Remaining on the property is a garage and 3 accessory buildings. The garage and fish cleaning building meets all setbacks. and the sheds are within setback to the lake. And I noticed on the site pictures, there's also a camper on site as well. A building envelope is available on the property. The applicant has owned the property since 2003. The applicant is requesting a variance to construct a new dwelling with a portion of it within setback to the lake. That would be 68 feet 3 inches, and then a deck within setback to the lake, and that deck would be 56 feet 11 inches. While there is significant topography on the site, bluff conditions do not exist. The impervious surface calculation, including the new dwelling, would be 14.04%, and 25% impervious surface is allowed. The applicable comprehensive land use plan goals is natural resources and open spaces, goal C2, shoreline development, goal D1. And then the comprehensive water plan goals and objectives is surface water goal, objective B, land use and development goal, objectives B and D. 73 notices were sent. One email and I'm gonna add to that, one email and one phone call was received prior to the public hearing. And I will get that. The phone call was received from Donna and Daryl Bringman, and they said that they are in favor of the request. And let me see. And I think, Mr. Chair, I do need to correct that. I think the email was actually a carryover from another request, so I apologize for that. But that was, so the only comment that we received was from the Bringmans, and that was a phone call, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
And then here are your finding of fact and decision questions.
Okay, thank you. The applicant like to add anything to that at this time, clarify anything, or?
Thank you for coming out for the site visit.
While you're on that subject, for the record, we were out for a site visit on Friday. Clint, myself, and Sharon were there Friday, and I think we were the only ones that viewed.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Anything else to add?
No, nothing else to add. That was a pretty thorough recap of everything we're proposing.
Okay. This that was handed out today, is this just larger of what we have in the packet, or is this something new?
Yep, Mr. Chair, it's my understanding that at the site visit, there were some questions about alternative plans. And I believe Travis had submitted these. And so you have a copy of what he submitted in your folder. And then, Mr. Chair, if maybe you want to ask him to kind of go through what these are depicting.
Sure.
Yeah, please do.
Okay, so we originally provided sheets S1 and S2 in the bottom right-hand corner. Sheet S1 was existing conditions. Sheet S2 is proposed conditions. After the site visit, there was some questions about, can we take what's proposed and slide it over to meet setback? So S3 is showing if we were to take the proposed structure and slide it to the east on the property, and you can see that to meet the setback to the corner of the deck, we're kind of getting blocked off with the complete structure by the existing garage. Sheet S4 would be sliding everything straight back to the corner. This one gets a little bit tight to make the turn into the garage. It does meet all the setbacks, but it's very close to that garage and very tight to maneuver a vehicle in and out of that garage space.
Yes, I guess we'll add these in as exhibits, S3 and S4, correct?
Yes.
The solid line represents the building envelope?
Yes, it's a dash line, but it's pretty tough to read on these prints, but yeah, it's
Oh, I see it as
kind of
dashed, yeah.
curved,
Okay.
curved to match the offset of the lake shore from the ordinary high water mark.
Okay, yeah, that really did address the questions that we had at the site. Okay, any specific questions, or you want to spend a few minutes looking at these, or?
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Clint.
Okay, what do you guys still gonna ask for? Are you gonna ask for the original? So that would be S2 probably, huh?
S2, yes.
So you just showing these what it could be, or possibility, or what are you guys still thinking?
Yeah, I believe the intent of those was to show, to address your concerns on the site, can we slide this one way or back or
Yep.
over to meet the setbacks? And we're showing those as exhibits of why they probably don't work as well as we thought on site.
Where do you enter the garage, where do you enter the new garage when it's directly behind the old garage? Where do you enter? At the same spot from the south, or? I think that's south, yeah.
Talking about S3?
Yes, I'm talking S3. Thank
Yeah,
you.
S3, it's just showing that physically doesn't work because the other garage would be in its way.
Oh, so that you don't have an entry into the, okay. And the other one,
then that one-
S4 is just,
S2 gets pretty tough too because we're building, over and within the area where the septic tank and drain fields currently are.
both of these would be, are set at the same elevations though? Or
Yes, they'd be at the same elevation that we're proposing for the
just different
existing.
locations,
Yep,
just?
for the S2 sheet is what we're proposing, yes.
Okay,
Mr. Chair,
go ahead, Brent.
I maybe have a question for Amy. So the cabin that was here and existing before was removed 2 years ago?
Correct.
And do we know, I don't see it in the packet, but do we know what the dimensions of that cabin was? And following up on that, is that
Should be on this, I don't know if you have this sheet in the packet.
Yeah, if-
Fessler Land Surveying.
If you have a bluff determination, that would be the best view.
S1 is the,
Mr. Chair, the previous conditions, I'll get to that slide for you. So let me get back to, let's see, S1. Okay, so, and I'll zoom that in. That's in your packet as well.
Yep.
So this is what the former cabin, or in the location and size and all of that was. And they would have had the right to replace that had they pulled a permit. If you demolish a nonconformity, you have up to a year to pull a permit. Since that wasn't done, they lost that replacement right. However, it would have had to have been what they had always had. It couldn't, if it was larger, they would be in a variant situation.
That's just what I wanted to cover. I was,
Yes.
okay, thank you. Any other questions? Public input? Okay, we'll ask for public input at this time. Is there any public input? Any public input? Third call, last call, any public input? As there is none, we'll close the meeting to public input at this time. So are you ready to review the questions? Like pulling teeth sometimes. I think they are. I'll take that as a yes. So the first question is the request in harmony with the general purposes and intent of the Morrison County Land Use Ordinance and Comprehensive Plan? Okay, I will start out with you, Clint. Or would you rather Brent start?
No, I'm just thinking. In harmony with the general purposes and intent, part of it is they come here to try and get a variance. We do allow that. The other part is when you look at the buildable property that they have and the area that they have, yeah, it's a little tight and things ain't ideal. But in the building envelope, I think there's plenty of building envelope. So then that part probably isn't in harmony with the intent.
Anything to add, Brent?
Not at this time.
The ordinance on nonconformity states, that the goal is to eliminate all nonconformities eventually. Not a realistic goal in our lifetime, or maybe even several lifetimes, but definitely it's not to create nonconformities. Nonconformities, they haunt whoever the landowner is, whenever things need to be done, you need a variance once you have a non-conforming structure. So there's that is not consistent with ordinance. So we're not into creating nonconformities. There's really, as Clint inferred, there is really no practical difficulty. It's a 53,000 square foot property, 426 feet of shoreline. I realize that the shape of the shoreline does limit, obviously, and with setbacks, limit where you can build. But as you shown with the two S4 and S3 that you submitted today, there are options, and size of structure is one thing. How much deck, or do you need deck on two sides, or can you get by a deck on one side? These are nice things to have, but they don't make for a practical difficulty. They just make for a wish for you. Variances are for the land, not for the landowner. It's not to meet necessarily your needs, but the needs of ordinance, the needs of future uses of property. So, question number 2. Okay, is the applicant proposing to use the property in a reasonable manner not permitted by the land use ordinance? We're starting out with Brent on that one.
Well, the applicants are proposing to build both a non-conforming home and then adding on the deck, which would further encroach. When there is a building envelope that exists on those combined lots there, I think it's maybe unreasonable to encroach and build a new structure that would be non-conforming.
Anything to add, Clint?
No, not at this time.
I have nothing to add to that either. Number 3, will the issuance of the variance maintain the essential character of the locality? I get to start. Well, I guess when you look at it, it is a large deck, 56 feet from the lake. I think that will stand out as a fairly obvious nonconformity, even though that part of the lake and it's well treed and very well cared for shoreline and slope. I still think that it would stick out as, boy, they sure built close to the lake, and I wish I could get a permit like that. So essential character, I think it would be out of character and would be obviously out of ordinance. Anybody else like to add to that?
I'm good.
Nothing further.
Okay. Number 4, is the alleged practical difficulty due to circumstances unique to the property? Clint, you can start.
I always struggle with these practical difficulties, and on this one, it's hard because they have a good building envelope. Maybe it doesn't quite fit the structure they want, because they want a little bigger square footage, and I'm fine with that, you know. It isn't ideal how it's set up, but there is a building envelope where you can set it up and meet the setbacks. Is things gonna be a little tight? Yes. It's not ideal, I agree, but you could still get it to work. So I just struggle to find a practical difficulty that's unique to this property.
Anything to add, Brent? Nor do I. Number 5, is the need for the variance created by actions other than the landowner or prior landowners? Brent?
I don't see where it's created by anybody other than the current landowners. This has been created by taking down of the old existing home and not either rebuilding or permitting and letting time lapse. So I struggle with finding how it's needed or created by anybody other than the current landowners.
I have nothing to add. Clint?
No, I'm good.
Number 6, does the alleged practical difficulty involve more than just economic considerations? Well, again, variances are given to the real estate, not to the landowner, and the plans are driven, you know, by the landowner, not the ordinance. It's what fits their needs and wants, not the property's best needs or the future landowner's best needs or the public's best needs. So with that in mind, I can't see it being anything other than personal preferences, which is the same as economic. So it does not involve any more than just economic considerations. Anybody want to add to that? If not, are you ready to vote?
Excuse me. At this time, could we choose to table this and work with staff to come up with a different solution before you guys vote?
I can't imagine another solution that we would pass.
Understandably so, yeah, something that would, you know, work.
I mean,
with
we were
staff
all
to
a
figure-
resounding no on every question.
Correct, that's right.
And that doesn't leave you much wiggle room. Go ahead, though. What are you
Right,
thinking?
understanding that maybe we come back with something that fits the ordinance and doesn't require variance.
Then you do that over the counter. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
then you would let them do
Go ahead and
what
vote.
they're doing, yep,
Okay.
and then
Either
you
of
would,
these two plans,
I'll, just let me, so if this doesn't pass, if you look at S4, if you did that plan, you can walk in and get a permit from Amy and do that. So, I mean, or tweak it a little bit and you could, yeah.
yep.
so Mr. Chair, at this time, really what the options are, they have to act on the request. So they're you'll either decide you want to withdraw your request and they're not going to vote on it because you withdrawn it at this time, or they'll go ahead and vote and make a decision on the request in front of them, and then we would work back and forth with something that meets the requirements of the ordinance and fits within that building envelope.
If there's a no vote, does that have any, you know, harm to the property or future development of the
No,
property?
not at all.
Okay.
No. No, it's, yeah. All right, are we ready to vote? Okay. As the request in harmony with the general purposes and intent of the Morrison County Land Use Ordinance and Comprehensive Plan. Clint?
No,
Brent?
No.
And myself is no. Is the applicant proposing to use the property in a reasonable manner not permitted by the Land Use Ordinance? Brent?
No.
Myself is no. Clint?
no,
Will the issuance of the variance maintain the essential character of the locality? Myself is no. Clint?
no,
Brent?
Yes.
Is the alleged practical difficulty due to circumstances unique to the property? Clint?
no,
Brent?
No.
Myself is no. Is the need for the variance created by actions other than the landowner or prior landowners? Brent?
No.
Myself is no. Clint?
no,
Does the alleged practical difficulty involve more than just economic considerations? Myself is no. Clint
No.
and Brent.
No.
Okay. All the questions have been answered in the negative. Is there a motion to deny this variance request?
Also move to make a motion to deny this request.
I'll second that. Any discussion? If there's no discussion, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor say aye. I'll roll call Brent.
Aye.
Myself, aye. Clint.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Your request is denied. No reflection on you or your property, beautiful property. You gave us excellent plans and information. You answered our questions from our viewing. You did good. You'll have a beautiful place when you're done, I'm sure.
All right, thank you for your time.
Are these,
You can have them if you want.
I've got a set.
Sign that, please, Dave.
My own personal pen I'm gonna use.
I know.
Okay, the next item on the agenda. Jason Lichtig, if the applicant would please come forward and pull up a microphone and state your name for the record. How do I pronounce your last name? Lichtig.
The G is silent.
G is silent. You can have help up here too if you want. Support. Go ahead, state your name for the record.
Jason Allen Lichtai.
Thank you. Address is 9251 Rosehaven Boulevard, Little Falls. Application for an after-the-fact variance to continue a patio retaining wall and 2 sheds located in Bellevue Township. Okay, the staff report.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Again, this is the after-the-fact variance. You've covered that, so I'm just going to move to the next slide. The ordinance reference for this is the Mississippi Headwaters Board, Section F1, and that requires a 150-foot setback from the river and also a 100-foot shore impact zone, as Morrison County ordinance is stricter, and that prevails. Also, the ordinance section for shore impact zones and patio setbacks. And then here's a plat map of Bellevue Township, and the location of the parcel is with the red dot. And then here is the request received from the applicant. And then here's a site drawing also provided by the applicant. And an aerial photograph, and then also some oblique imagery of the parcel. Then here are some site photographs taken. Again, the property is in Section 8 of Bellevue Township. It is on the Mississippi River and within the Rosehaven subdivision, which was established in 1960. It is a non-conforming single lot, which means it's less than 5 acres and 330 feet wide. The property is 175 feet wide and 24,057 square feet. The applicant purchased the property in 2014. The first Mississippi Headwaters Board standards went into effect in 1981, and the required setback from the river is 150 feet, and the shore impact zone is the first 100 feet from the river. The zoning history on the property includes in 1988, a variance was granted to construct a 28 by 34 cabin between 70 and 79 feet from the river. In 1994, there was a variance to construct a pole shed 100 feet from the river and 48 feet from the center line of the road. On October 2021, Land Services received a complaint regarding an unpermitted fence, patio, grade and fill, and 2 sheds close to the river. February 2022, a first notice of violation was sent. March 2022, a follow-up letter was sent. In April 2022, a second notice of violation was sent. And now we're here. The applicant is requesting the following after-the-fact variances to keep the 20 by 48 patio and associated retaining wall within the shore impact zone, keep the 5 by 8 shed within the shore impact zone, and keep the 20 by 16 shed within the shore impact zone. The impervious surface is 24.28%. 25% impervious surface is allowed. The applicable comprehensive land use plan goals is natural resources and open spaces, goal C2. Shoreline development, goal D1. And the water plan goals and objectives, the surface water goal, objective B. Land use and development goal, objectives B and D. 55 notices were sent, and 2 comments were received prior to the public hearing. Let me grab those. Got this letter in regards to the Jason Lick type after the fact variance. I do not believe it should be granted, as this is Mississippi River property, and after remodeling the pole shed and making it into a bar, this patio is simply a party extension. I am sure there was never any intentions of applying for a building permit, as there probably wasn't even one for the privacy fence put up last year to hide the permanent porta potty behind it. And then that was not signed, Mr. Chair. And then I have that. And I'm gonna look for the other one, Mr. Chair. I'm sure it's in here, and it's just my folder's a little scattered here, so I will circle back on that, Mr. Chair. But I'll let you have your discussion.
Carry on, huh?
Yeah, I'll let you carry on.
Okay, thank you. All right, the applicant have anything to add to the staff report?
No.
Okay. I guess I'll just start out with a little bit of review of where you're at here. 24,057 square foot property, 175 foot of shoreline, 150 feet deep. A conforming property in any location, typically, in Morrison County is 30,000 square feet. Lakeshore properties, for sure, 30,000 square feet is a conforming property. So this would even be non-conforming by Morrison County standards. Of course, Mississippi Headwaters standards are 5 acres for any new property that is developed. Looking back at the history of this property, again, it's about the property. It's not about you. The variance is about the property. We don't give you the variance, we give the property the variance. In 1981, the Mississippi Headwaters Board formed their first standards. In 1988, it's on record that a variance was given to allow a building between 70 and 79 feet from the shoreline. And looking at it on Beacon, it's about 70 feet from the shoreline. In 1994, a shed was permitted with a variance to be 100 feet from the shoreline, which would be out of the shore impact zone. I assume that's why the rationale behind giving that variance. So this property has been gifted a fair amount of relief from the strictest interpretations of the ordinance. With the house at 70 feet from the shoreline and the shed at 100 feet from the shoreline. Did you find that, Amy?
I did not, Mr. Chair. My apologies. No.
Apologies accepted. So, anybody have anything to add to that? I just wanted to make it clear that that's where the history was on this property. Go ahead, Clint. You look like you're thinking.
Something that's bothering me. So Amy, maybe you can answer this more.
I'll try.
Okay, Dave's a big proponent that we can't have nonconformities, right? If you go down that whole road, every one of them houses is too close. Okay, and there's houses in there that's been built in the last 10 years. So they all got variances. So why, if we don't want nonconformities, do we give variances to every house along that road? That's my assumption, I'm just,
Yeah.
That's a big assumption because they might have been replacing existing structures or they might have just been remodeled
this house was built in 88 after the ordinance.
with a variance.
Yeah,
Yeah,
shed was built in 1994 with a variance.
yep. Yep,
Okay, but I'll guarantee you that one house to the south did not get grandfathered in because there's no way they built a house in 1960 that big.
we're only discussing this property today, Clint.
I just wanna know why.
If you're referring to essential character by looking up and down the
Just a
block,
question I'd have
that,
so I
then it
can
would be
answer some of
pertinent.
these.
Yeah,
Mr. Chair, the Rosehaven addition was platted prior to the Mississippi Headwaters Board. So when you look at, and I'll zoom out and I'll pull this over so you can see, when you look at the neighborhood in this area, most of these, when you take that setback from the road, and then you take the setback from the river, you know, most of them aren't even 150 feet deep. So there is no building envelope available on these. So when these were built, more than likely, the house itself, what enabled this area to be developed was more than likely a variance, or it was built prior to the Mississippi Headwaters Board controls. So that would be a common theme. I believe some of these aren't developed, but that would be a common theme along this whole Rosehaven Boulevard. And so that is the case with this property, that 2 variances were granted to it in order to develop it, to have the shed and the home. As I would venture to say, that is probably the case with these as well. And if they were to add on or add a shed or add anything, they would need a variance to do that as well.
Can I add something?
are you finished, Clint, or?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
When I bought the property, I'm just finding out now, I still had no idea that there was already 2 variances on that property. I had no clue. And why I put the patio in is because I was getting erosion there and I just couldn't keep the grass growing, and I could see my foundation and the wood was starting to rot, so I put up the patio. But I had no clue that that shed needed a variance at the time.
Or that you needed a building permit.
Or that whatever the house add-on that they did, I thought the whole house was there. You're saying there's 2 variances already. What was the other one? The shed, and what was the other one?
The home.
House itself.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, you know, when looking at neighboring properties, it is worthwhile to look at them when we see what the neighbors have done. Because you always hear, well, they've got a shed there, and, you know, and I was on Beacon today, and I looked up and down, you know, you only have the one picture from the one point in time, but it looks like they've all been pretty respectful about, between the house and the shoreline, about not adding structures. So there must be, you know, at least some knowledge of the fact that structures are not allowed between their houses and the shoreline because, you know, it doesn't meet setbacks. So I thought that was,
And as far as, I'm sorry, can I say something?
go ahead.
Like the gray shed has been there since 1980. The little one, the little 5x8.
Oh, sure.
I didn't, when you buy that place, I mean, was I supposed to look up if it was already, was it permitted? I mean, that's my mistake, but does everybody do that when they buy a property? They look at all the stuff that's already there?
Can't answer that. No, I'm sure they don't. But again, there is no police force or no enforcement department in land services. It's only reaction to, well, when it's called to their attention that something has happened that gosh, how did they do that without a permit, you know? And then enforcement takes place, and then other, things are corrected at the same time on that property, one property at a time, though. So it's basically complaint-driven.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
I found it.
Oh, okay. Okay,
The other
Amy?
comment, so I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. This is from Susan Schmea, and the comment was that these items have improved the use and value of this property. I'm not against the improvements done. So that's your second comment, so thank you.
Okay, Brent?
Chair.
Jason, could you just help me out? I know I spoke with you on Friday when I was out there and viewed prior to the rest of the group showing up there. But how did you go about building this retaining wall and patio without a permit? Maybe you can shed some light on what advice or on whose
I guess it was.
belief
I
you
guess it was
acted on.
totally my mistake. We all know a local concrete guy, and I guess we're learning so much about that, it's the Mississippi Headwaters and all the things that he says you shouldn't need any permit at all to put concrete. So we did it.
So your contractor told you you're pouring concrete, so you don't need a permit, you're not
Yes,
building a
You're not putting
structure?
any structure or anything on it or anything? And I said, no, I'm just trying to save. He said, you're gonna need a retaining wall, or you're gonna have to bring out so much dirt, and just put a retaining wall up. You could see part of my foundation, and it was rotting because they didn't have enough dirt there. And you see when you first came off of by the driveway, all the erosion that was there. I was having somewhat the same thing going on, because the way the land came down, and it went like this, that the water would come off the shed, and it would go this way and this way.
Okay.
I guess the only response to that is, as long as all setbacks are met and there's no structure going up on it, concrete can be cast, correct, Amy? Like for driveways or whatever, if setbacks are met.
And permits are pulled. So
Do you-
we pay attention in shoreland and in Mississippi
shoreland.
Headwaters Board, we pay attention to, we would permit something like this. This would require a permit, and we would then run that impervious surface calculation to make sure that it's
But out in the country on my farm, I can put a slab of concrete without a permit?
correct. In shoreland, it needs to be at least
Correct.
outside of the shore impact zone, and then that impervious surface needs to work, and you need a permit.
So your contractor is right a little bit.
And the other
He might
thing
be
that
right
we,
90% of the time, but he's gonna be wrong a lot.
and the other thing that we did is we made sure we didn't go past the existing house. We're set back from there, so it's 84 feet from the waters that we measured.
Well, you must have known something about setbacks if you went to that length.
Just assumed by looking at the house that,
Okay. All right, any other questions? Public input? Okay, we're ready for public input. If there's anybody that would like to speak for or against this, please step forward. There's a microphone over there. State your name for the record, and this is your opportunity. Is there anybody that would like to comment? Any public comments? Last call. Okay. As there's no public comment, we'll close the meeting to public input at this time. Okay, are we ready for the questions? Do we have anything more to discuss? So the way we address and after the fact is as if it was being asked of us before the fact. I mean, if you were in here for a variance to do this, what would we have said? You know, it's there now, but what would we have said if it wasn't there? Would we have permitted it or not? And that's how we'll be answering the questions. Okay, is that clear to you?
yeah.
Okay.
And then, Mr. Chair, do you want to explain the after the fact then? So,
Okay. Why don't you do that, Amy?
okay. So the first half, they're looking at it just like if you had come in before you had done it, would they have granted that? If the answer to that is yes, then they move to a second set of criteria questions where they weigh and balance, okay, how did we get here? Why are we on the back end of this? And so that's that extra set of criteria that they can choose to apply if all of these are answered in the affirmative. So depending on how this vote, they may go to a second set of questions.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
ahead.
I'd like to talk about a couple conditions just to help me vote in or discuss some of these answers to help me go yes on some of them.
Okay.
One of them would be, I'm not big on water plans, but Marv's gone tonight, so I'll take care of that. But I think definitely we need the way that all that water runs to the river from your property. I think definitely we have to have somebody look at it. You said you've been talking with Darren a little bit.
Yeah.
But I think definitely we gotta have gutters on that shed and try and get almost all the water to the roadside. So I think that's something. You were talking about, in between this patio and your house, the water channels through there, you'd have to work on that. So basically a water plan with gutters and stuff on that. That'd be one condition, and here's one you ain't gonna like. But I would say one of the conditions, if this would get approved, that the 2 little storage sheds would be removed. They'd be out of that shore impact zone then. Them the 2 that I come up with. I really appreciate when you planted that grass, that you use mesh to try and stop some of that. I seen that and I appreciated that.
Do we want to, before we go any further, do we want to divide this up or do we want to vote on the shed separate from or just as a condition?
Yep, Mr. Chair, that is part of the ask, is for those sheds. So that would be something you'd want to discuss as far as if you want to consider the entire request in your discussion and in your voting, and then if you choose to, you would need to, if you're going to deny a portion of it, though, you're going to need to have findings and vote separately for those, or just consider the whole works together. So.
Okay. Should we wait? Okay, go ahead.
Can you discuss the second part of that for the recording,
Oh, okay.
when they split it?
Yeah. This was going to be a discussion item after, but when you split those, then each of those need to be recorded separately. And so we'll just incur additional expense every time we separate them. So that would be something that you would just want to keep in mind.
Okay. Remind us if we don't.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
I just had a question for Amy. Since Clint brought up the 2 sheds and the removing of them, is there a building envelope on that property where those sheds could be located to?
No,
at all?
No, if those sheds, there is nowhere those sheds could be moved to meet setback, so,
Because
there
you
would
got the
need to-
road on one side and the
right.
150 feet on the
So
other.
to relocate them, they would always be within setback to the river. And so the best that could be done would be to move them farther from the river, but a variance would still need to be granted in order to do that. Because when you move something, we re-permit it. And so he would need a variance for those 2 sheds, regardless of where they would be on the property.
Okay, I just struggle with the smaller shed that's been there since the 1980s. I get the one in 2019 or so, but I struggle with one that's been there for 30 years, 40 years.
But still after the Headwaters was formed. Okay, where are we at? Are we ready for the questions?
Unless you have other conditions that you want to discuss to keep in mind as you're voting. Otherwise, then you would go to your questions
Ready to go?
and/or decide whether you're going to split the votes or split the consideration?
Yeah, I think, can we include both in our discussion and then split the vote afterwards? I think that might be clear.
As long as you make sure you're touching on every single piece of it
Yep.
in this initial discussion.
Yep. Okay. We're good on that? We'll discuss them all, but we'll vote separately on the sheds and on the patio retaining wall.
Okay,
All right, is the request in harmony with the general purposes and intent of the Morrison County Land Use Ordinance and Comprehensive Plan? Start out with Clint, or did I start with you last time? Start with Brent, sorry.
I don't know how, I don't know how it is. There isn't a building envelope there for anything. And the ask is for 2 sheds and this patio. There really isn't any place on that property to put it. So it's not in harmony with the general purposes of the land use ordinance.
Yep, and I guess I'd add to that, this is only a 24,000 square foot property without a building envelope. It's already got, the variance for the house and the shed, which, nice sized shed for such a small property. We all like our stuff, but some properties just are not big enough to accommodate our wishes or personal, preferences. It's the property that we're looking at and not your needs. And it's already been given lots of relief from the strictest interpretation of the ordinance. My opinion is that there shouldn't not be any other relief given for the sheds or for the patio retaining wall. Anything to add to that, Clint?
Yeah, I agree on the sheds, what you guys been saying. Maybe the patio, with the, what the heck we call it? With putting the gutters and stuff on the house, or the gutters on all that stuff to get the water away from the lake. I think that's, when we look through shoreline development occurring with the county's watershed is done in a thoughtful manner. If we try to get as much water back as we can, being the patio is not, would not be any closer than what the house is already. I think with water plan and that, I think that maybe makes it somewhat in general purpose, in harmony. That way we make sure enhance and maintain the quality of surface water, trying to take that water away from the river and get it to the other side of the building and go towards a ditch. I think that's within our goal here on surface water goal. Yeah, so that's what I kind of mixed on both, so.
Yeah, I guess I'd like to add to question number 1 that, that patio area is part of the shore impact zone, part of the necessity for that protecting a shore impact zone is to reduce or filter water before it goes to the water body, whether it's a river or a lake. And patio, there's nothing filtering there. If that was vegetation, the filtering would start 20 feet sooner. Also, when looking at the Headwaters Guidelines, it's about the beauty of the river and the public's use of that river and the roadways beside it. Right now you're going by and you see a big gray retaining wall. and no natural vegetation between that and the shoreline. I think, a condition that screened that with vegetation would be something that would help answer the question to the positive, would screen that whole retaining wall and above it, and then have, a shoreline development that slowed the flow of water from there down to the river, other than just grass cut at 1 inch high. That doesn't do anything. Doesn't do much. That would make it more in line with the harmony and purpose of our ordinance and Mississippi Headwaters. So, anything more on question number 1? Number 2, is the applicant proposing to use the property in a reasonable manner not permitted by the land use ordinance? It's within 100 feet of the river. It's not reasonable to ask for this request in that shore impact zone. That protects the waterway. It screens passersby from structures, improves the environmental quality of the property by staying out of that shore impact zone as much as possible. Not reasonable to ask for permitting within it. Okay, anybody else?
I would add to that, Mr. Chair. As far as the sheds, they're a lot closer to the river. Everything's in the shore impact zone, but they're way closer. So I don't think that's reasonable. When we talk about the patio, when I look at the patio, the riverside edge, so that would be, to me, the west edge. So your very west edge of your patio, when you look straight up, it's in the center of the neighboring house. You look over to your house, it's probably 2 inches back from your western edge of your house. You ain't encroaching any closer. Granted, no matter where you build anything on there, you don't meet setbacks. I'm not saying it's okay, but what I'm saying is I think with a water plan and trying to divert as much water back to the front side of the house, I can kind of see that that's somewhat reasonable. And then also I'd note, yes, the lawn is short. You get a shoreline plan, they'll take that in effect. But one thing I did appreciate was that you kept the actual shoreline pretty natural. So that's what I'd have to add.
Time that I can add anything right now?
Not now. Okay. Okay, will the issuance of the variance maintain the essential character of the locality? Clint, your turn.
I believe so. Drive by from the river, you won't really you wouldn't really notice that patio. You'd notice the sheds. Going down the road, you ain't gonna see it. The sheds or the patio, I guess. You go right or left of his property. I would say that patio is actually closer to the road and farther away from the lake than both properties on both sides of them. So I would say that would maintain the essential character of the locality.
Okay, anything to add to that? Yeah, essential character, is that the essential character we'd like or the essential character we've got of the locality? I guess if possibly you could answer that question, yes, if, like I said earlier, if that was screened in some way, if it was, and if there were vegetation between the shoreline and that retaining wall. The more of these variances that we grant, the more this becomes the essential character of the locality, and we can only address one property at a time. This request does not meet the intent of the ordinance. It's not reasonable to propose it. It should not be the essential character of the locality. Anything to add?
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
you know, back to the essential character of locality, the whole lake or river frontage along there are all homes that are within, you know, say 100 feet or so of the river. And I think it does maintain the essential character of the locality. I don't think you see the patio, but you would, the sheds are separate. I think there's a distinction to be made there.
Okay. Yeah, I guess when my comments, I was addressing both the sheds and the patio at the same time. Again, we're asking for a variance. We're not after the fact. We're asking for this as a variance. Okay, number 4. Are we ready for number 4? Is the alleged practical difficulty due to circumstances unique to the property? Brent?
Well, I think it is unique to the property in that there was a variance granted to put that shed there, and the roof line, the way that shed goes, drops water down, which apparently has caused some erosion issues there. So that is unique to the property. The homeowner has talked about trying to address that, although it was done already. We're looking at this after the fact now. But there is an erosion issue that was trying to be addressed there. So the practical difficulty would probably be unique to this property in that one structure was permitted to be there, which is causing an erosion issue.
Okay. You'll have to bear with me, Brent, but erosion is not unique to any property. Every landowner needs to, especially a lakeshore owner, needs to address erosion. And if that wasn't there and he was just requesting a variance to put in concrete to control erosion, all you're doing is moving the erosion closer to the lake or to the shoreline. Concrete has never been an answer, well, I shouldn't say never, an answer for erosion, but an extreme answer at best. So I would have a difficult time considering that as a practical difficulty. You know, it's a small property, 24,000 square feet. It's just, there's only so much you can put on a property, especially with ordinance that protects the right-of-way of the road, protects your neighbor's side properties, protects the shoreline, which belongs to everybody, not just you. So nothing unique about this property. They're up and down the whole, I mean, all of his neighbors are in the same situation as he is. And again, like I said, I was fairly impressed by a stroll across the neighborhood with Beacon that there's not, I didn't see any, I can't say any, but it's hard to tell from a picture, but I didn't see any small sheds that I could identify. I thought people were respecting from the house to the shore quite well. And they were all in that, some were as low as 50, some were as far as 100. Most were in the same range as the applicant's house. It's 70, 75, 80 feet. And most were respecting that. So being it's a small property is not a practical difficulty. Erosion is not a practical difficulty. I don't know what we can find that would make a practical difficulty here. You want more storage, you need a bigger property or another property.
I'd say the practical difficulties, whoever decided to make that development with all them small houses. And he ain't gonna, or not lots, sorry, lots. And you say it ain't a development. To me, it's a development when a road horseshoe is in. That's due to not just that property, it's the other ones also. But I don't know, whoever made all them small lots and allowed them all to go in there. So I don't know how you interpret that, but
Well, we have to assume that happened before Mississippi Headwaters. Are we ready for question number 5? Is the need for the variance created by actions other than the landowner or prior landowners? I get to start out there on, this is landowner's request. It's not coming from anywhere else. I don't know what argument we could use that would say it's other than the landowner requesting the placement of these sheds and the placement of this patio and retaining wall to meet his personal needs, not what's best for the property or what is guided by ordinance. Okay, anybody want to add to that?
I would say it's not just the landowner. It's how them lots were developed. Yes, it's unbuildable. I mean, there ain't a building envelope on any one of them. But, so it isn't just the landowner. It's other actions too.
Okay. Any other input on number 5?
I would just say that, we're looking at the patio and the 2 sheds, so the house is there, the shed's there. This variance would be for those things, and that request is by the landowner.
Okay, anything else on number 5? Number 6, does the alleged practical difficulty involve more than just economic considerations? Clint?
No, yeah, definitely, because 90% of the stuff that's there was there before he ever moved there. The small lot size, he's trying to control water and erosion. Yes, economics is in there, but there's more to it than just that.
Anything, Brent?
Nothing further.
Yeah, the alleged practical difficulty, I always have trouble with that language. The alleged practical difficulty involves more than economic considerations. But in actuality, it's the request is for things that are not permitted by ordinance, and they are requested to meet the applicant's personal needs. Personal needs are not, we can't use that as an other consideration other than just economic. So in my mind, it's all about economics. He's got a small lot. He wants to pack as much into it as he can. Can't blame him. But that's all about money rather than finding storage elsewhere or trying to fit into the ordinance the way you should be. Okay, anything to add to that, number 6? Do you want to take the sheds first or the patio first?
It's up to you, you're the chair.
Sheds? Let's go sheds.
Or do we take them all as the whole?
I don't know, that'd be a little fuzzier in my mind. I don't know what I'd be voting yes or no on.
Do the sheds first.
Excuse me?
Do the sheds first.
Sheds first, it is. Okay, 2 sheds within the shore impact zone. Is the request in harmony with the general purposes and intent of the Morrison County Land Use Ordinance and Comprehensive Plan? Brent?
No.
Myself is no. Clint?
No.
Number 2, is the applicant proposing to use the property in a reasonable manner not permitted by the land use ordinance? Myself is no. Yeah. Excuse me, I'm sorry. Is the applicant proposing to use the property in a reasonable manner not permitted by the land use ordinance? No. Clint
No.
and Brent.
Yes.
Was the issuance of the variance, will the issuance of the variance maintain the essential character of the locality? Clint,
No.
Brent,
No.
myself is no. Is the alleged practical difficulty due to circumstances unique to the property? Brent,
Yes.
myself is no. Clint,
No.
5, is the need for the variance created by actions other than the landowner or prior landowners? Myself is no. Clint
Yes.
and Brent.
No.
Number 6, does the alleged practical difficulty involve more than just economic considerations? Clint,
Yes.
Brent,
Yes.
and myself is no. Okay, looking back, number 6 was answered to the affirmative, and the rest were answered negatively. Is there a motion to deny this after the fact to keep the 2 sheds within the shore impact zone?
Mr. Chair, I make that motion.
Okay,
I'll second it.
motion is made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. All roll call. Brent,
Aye.
myself is aye. Clint.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Request for the 2 sheds is denied. Okay, we're ready to vote now on the patio and retaining wall. Is the request in harmony with general purposes intent of the Morrison County Land Use Ordinance and Comprehensive Plan? Brent,
No.
myself is no. Clint,
Yes, what conditions?
number 2, is the applicant proposing to use the property in a reasonable manner not permitted by the land use ordinance? Myself is no. Clint
Yes, with the condition.
and Brent.
Yes, with the conditions.
Okay, number 3, will the issuance of the variance maintain the essential character of the locality? Clint,
Yes.
Brent,
No.
and myself is no. Is the alleged practical difficulty due to circumstances unique to the property? Brent,
Yes.
myself is no. Clint,
Yes.
number 5, is the need for the variance created by actions other than the landowner or prior landowners? Myself is no. Clint
Yes.
and Brent.
No.
Number 6, does the alleged practical difficulty involve more than just economic considerations? Clint,
Yes.
Brent,
Yes.
and myself is no. Okay, number 6 was answered to the affirmative. I think number 6 was the only one, correct?
Mr. Chair, I have number
4.
2, 4, and 6 answered in the affirmative.
2, 4, and 6, yes.
1, 3, 5 in the negative.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. Yep, that's what I have too. Okay, so 3 of the questions have been answered negatively, so is there a motion to deny? I move that we deny the after-the-fact application to continue a patio with retaining wall. Is there a second?
I can't. I voted yes on everyone.
I'd second that.
Okay, motion has made and seconded to deny this request. Is there any discussion? If there's no discussion, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor say aye, all opposed say nay. Brent,
Aye.
myself is aye. Clint?
Nay.
Okay, a motion carries. Variance, after the fact variance request for the patio and retaining wall is denied. After the fact questions don't need to be answered.
No, they do not.
Okay. Did we do that all clearly so you could, you recorded it? Okay.
Yes.
So contact land services as to what happens next.
That's it.
Two of them there, Dave.
Okay, minutes from the previous meeting. Is there a motion to accept?
I so move.
Second that?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Old business?
No, I don't think I have anything for old.
Okay, new business.
I have new business. I just wanted to visit, we didn't realize this, but, we stumbled upon it more because the votes are getting split. And I just want to visit with you about that. So when we have like a grant on one and a deny on the other, like when they get broken up, we have to record them separately. And because when they record them, they record approve or deny, and then it doesn't get caught when someone does the title search. So anyway, they have to be separate documents. And so we've been collecting just
Like we just
one,
signed two here.
right, but they were both denied, so we can record them together. But
Oh.
if one had been approved and one had been denied, then we'd be recording two separate documents, two sets of findings, two documents. We collect one recording fee because they're request, and then we would collect one recording fee, and we use that to pay the recording fee over at the recorder's office, because it's not free. So when we have the two, then that comes out of we pay for that because we don't circle back. So, number one, just something to keep in mind. And so there's a couple of different things we could do it, and we want to know kind of what your thoughts are. Okay, this is what you requested, this is what we're gonna vote on, period, all in one fell swoop. Or if you want the ability to really do that, then what we would do on the end is, okay, actually, you're asking for 4 variances here, we're gonna collect 4 recording fees from you.
How much is a recording fee?
They're $49 a piece, 46. So anyway, so just something to have some discussion, because we could do it either way, but we just wanted to bring it up because it's happening a little bit more frequently.
Well,
Because these requests, people need more than one variance sometimes.
It's my fault. I'll quit doing it.
No,
Sometimes I feel like, okay, I knew this wasn't gonna go tonight, okay? But I thought if we maybe got rid of the sheds, maybe we get the patio passed. I know there's no way I probably would have voted for all of it either. So that's why I tried to split it to get them something.
but if you want
just-
that flexibility.
But no, you're right. If they apply for something, it should be on them. I think sometimes,
On the patio with your conditions,
yeah,
because you said, it's conditioned
Yeah.
as patio that the 2 sheds get removed.
Yeah.
That was still worked under one approval.
yeah.
Yeah, but his request was for the patios, so you have to act on that
Yeah,
request.
and his other part of the request was for the sheds, so I don't know.
He's asking for that after the fact
It's
variance
not
for
real clear
two.
what you're voting on.
You don't essentially end up
Yeah.
acting or making a decision.
I guess
on the
it's
shed.
up to them people. You talk to them, we gotta just probably go with what they put on the paper instead of trying to help too much.
So, like the sheds, everything goes with it.
Yeah,
Otherwise, they'd have to have 3 different variances.
yeah. So I think we'll
But
just,
maybe you should be upfront with them and tell them if you want 3 different variances, you're gonna have 3 different fees, and it might be a better opportunity to get at least
Yeah.
one
Yeah,
thing.
and so, and that, and so that, I guess, was the point of the conversation. If you want to have that flexibility, when we have people that need this and this and this and this, like a height and an impervious and a setback and all of that.
Oh, yeah.
We would just say, okay, well, actually, you're asking, we can hear it all together. But sometimes we're not, sometimes we're good at predicting if you're gonna separate them, but sometimes we're not. But, so we could say essentially, this is how many variances you're asking for, so this is how many votes you may get, and so we'll collect that. So anyway, but that was just something that we
I
wanted to
think,
visit
I
with you.
think, I mean, I'm the one that splits them a lot of times. And I do it once I get a feel on maybe what the
Yeah.
other guys are doing, so I'm like, okay, maybe if we split it, they'll get something. But if you tell them in your DRT meetings that if you wanna apply for two separate ones, you might have a better chance. They wanna go, I guess, from now on, when it's in front of us, that's what we have to vote on,
I think we should make it their decision.
yeah.
Yeah, maybe put the onus back on them, but like this one here, you got 2 sheds and the patio.
See, I
One of
was,
those sheds being there, and
I
it
know.
was a small shed from the nineteen
Well, we
eighties.
could have said you can keep that one and not, you can keep shed A and not shed B.
yeah,
But as it was, you're looking at
Yeah.
everything in an entire package,
Yeah.
and it's like, well, you can't.
Yep.
And now you get spanked for the shed in 1988 that really probably
So,
isn't doing much out there.
at the viewing, I was leaning towards everything kibosh until I left the yard. That just totally blew my cork.
What?
That 2 houses down,
Oh,
that brand new house, I'll guarantee you, is way bigger. We'll wait till after the meeting.
so, oh, yeah. One property at a time.
Whatever.
Yeah, so this one maybe would have been easier in 3 different variances.
That'll come and probably been the same though.
It may have come out the
So
same.
what we could do is just have that discussion with the applicant at the DIRT meeting to say, there is a possibility that the board may want to look at these separately. If you want that, then we'll collect this many recording fees.
Would it be
and-
recording fees only, or would it be?
Correct, because,
variances?
no,
One variance,
you know,
but-
I have to do 2 sets of findings and all of that, but we don't, you know, we wouldn't charge the 600 and, you know, we wouldn't charge that. It's more work, you know, because we have to come up with 2 sets of everything. But we haven't, in the past, you know, because the hearing's the same, the staff report's essentially the same, all of that, so we haven't. And sometimes, depending on the project, all of those variances, they would need every one of them in order to do the project. Where some of these are really kind of distinct, separate things, like this one, you know, the sheds were completely
Yeah,
separate.
this
and-
one you
and could have been.
would've thought, hey.
Yeah, and we
let's
could have
split
said,
it.
hey,
Yeah.
do you know, so we can certainly just start having that discussion, and then if they want to,
I think that'd be fine, and then I'll just quit splitting things. Whatever comes in front of us, that's what we gotta look at. It would probably shorten the meeting up too.
But in that same breath, sometimes.
you want that
it is-
flexibility.
Well, it is helpful to split them.
Yeah, you may want that
Even if they didn't want
flexibility.
it split, it might be helpful for us, because they're,
I could see the rationale.
especially these after-the-fact ones, they're so complicated.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay, well then we'll just start having that conversation at the DIRT meeting when they have multiple requests that are coming forward that could naturally be split. I think if it's something where they would need every single one of those variances for the project, then maybe not so much, but we can certainly start having that discussion with them at the DIRT. Okay, sounds good. Other than that, that's all I have for new business.
and then do we have another meeting other than the 30th? The one the
Do we
16th?
have an agenda? No,
No,
we
I
don't
believe
have an
there
agenda
wasn't.
for the 16th. So the 30th will be the next meeting, and I think we have and that's on the planning commission side, though. We've got the ordinance, but I think we've got 3 planning commission.
2 with the ordinance amendments, so 3 on the agenda for planning commission. And then right now, 1 board of adjustment.
Okay, so we'll have that'll be a busy one. So otherwise, I think that's all I have, Mr. Chair.
I so move.
Second it, all in favor, say aye.
I-
Aye.